HOA fenced off my ranch, so I fenced off their neighborhood, and I'm the only one with the key. The sun was a mean, red eye glaring over the Wyoming horizon, painting the plains in hues of fire and regret. My boots crunched against the gravel as I stared at the new fence slicing through my ranch like a butcher's knife. The posts were shiny, the wire taut, and the sign nailed to it screamed in bold letters. Property of Karen HOA. I spat into the dust, the taste of betrayal bitter on my tongue. This wasn't just land. This was my family's legacy, 3 generations of sweat and sacrifice, now carved up by a pack of suburban vultures who'd moved in with their manicured lawns and their endless rules. I'm Jack Tully, last of the Tullys to hold this ranch together. At 42, I'd seen my share of fights, bar brawls, cattle rustlers, even a grizzly that got too curious. But nothing prepared me for the Karens. They rolled into our quiet valley 2 years ago, building their gated community, Harmony Hills, right up against my property line. At first, I didn't mind. Live and let live, my daddy always said. But then came the complaints. My cattle were too loud, my barn too ugly, my existence too inconvenient. Last month, they pushed through a rezoning, with the county claiming eminent domain to snatch 50 acres of my land for their community expansion. That fence was their victory lap. I leaned against my truck, the metal hot under my palms, and felt the weight of it all. I could fight this in court, but lawyers cost more than I had, and the Karens had deep pockets. I could sell out, take their blood money, and walk away. Or I could do something else, something they'd never see coming. A grin tugged at my lips, sharp and reckless. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd show them what a rancher could do with a grudge and a plan. The next morning, I drove into town, the kind of place where everyone knows your name and your granddaddy's sins. At the hardware store, I loaded up on chain link rolls, steel posts, and padlocks enough to make Fort Knox blush. Old man Carter, the owner, raised a bushy eyebrow as he rang me up. "You planning a war, Jack?" he asked, half joking. I just winked. Something like that. Back at the ranch, I called in every favor I had. My cousin Eddie, a welder with a chip on his shoulder, showed up with his crew. My neighbor Pete, who'd lost his own land to the Karens' legal tricks, brought his backhoe and a case of beer. We worked through the night, the clatter of metal and the hum of machinery drowning out the crickets. By dawn, we'd done it, a 10-foot chain-link fence, topped with razor wire, encircling the entire Harmony Hills neighborhood. 1 gate, 1 lock, 1 key. And that key was in my pocket. I stood back, hands on hips, admiring our work as the first rays of sunlight glinted off the steel. It was beautiful, in a vicious kind of way. The Karens had caged my ranch, so I'd caged their precious community. Let's see how they liked being trapped. The fallout came fast. By noon, a crowd of Harmony Hills residents gathered at the gate, their faces a mix of confusion and rage. Leading the charge was Karen Prime herself, Deborah Whitaker, president of the HOA. She was a wiry woman with a perm so tight it looked like it was strangling her scalp. Her voice was a banshee wail as she jabbed a manicured finger at me through the bars. "Jack Tully, you open this gate right now, or I'll have you arrested." I leaned against a post, twirling the key on my finger like a gunslinger. "Arrested for what, Deb? This is my land now. County records say so. Funny how paperwork works, ain't it?" Her eyes bulged. "Your land? This is outrageous. We have rights." I chuckled, low and mean. "Rights? Like the ones you respected when you stole my acres." The crowd murmured, some looking uneasy, others nodding along with Deborah's fury. I didn't care. This was my moment, and it felt good. That night, I sat on my porch, a whiskey in hand, watching the lights of Harmony Hills flicker like a trapped firefly. They'd figure out a way to fight back soon, lawyers, injunctions, maybe even bolt cutters. But for now, I held the power, and it was sweeter than any victory I'd ever tasted. The next day brought a surprise I hadn't counted on. A kid, maybe 16, slipped through a gap in the fence we'd missed. He was scrawny, with a mop of brown hair and glasses too big for his face. He stood in my yard, hands shoved in his pockets, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Mr. Tully," he said, voice cracking. "I'm Ethan. I live in Harmony Hills. Can we talk?" I squinted at him, suspicious. "You a spy for Deborah?" He shook his head, cheeks flushing. "No, sir. I think what you did is kinda awesome." That caught me off guard. I gestured to the porch steps. "Sit. Talk." Ethan spilled his story like a dam breaking. He hated Harmony Hills, hated the rules, the fake smiles, the way his mom, a single parent, worked 2 jobs to afford their perfect life. He'd overheard the HOA's plans to take my land months ago, but was too scared to speak up. Now, seeing my fence, he felt something stir, something like hope. They think they own everything, he said, eyes fierce. But you showed him they don't. I didn't know what to make of Ethan. Part of me wanted to send him packing, but another part, a softer part, one didn't like admitting to saw a kid who reminded me of myself at that age, angry at a world that kept taking. You got guts coming here, I said finally. But this ain't a game, kid. Things are gonna get ugly. He nodded, solemn. I know. That's why I want to help. Help? I almost laughed. But there was something in his eyes, a spark I couldn't ignore. So I handed him a soda from the cooler and said, all right, Ethan, let's see what you're made of. Over the next week, the war escalated. The Karens tried everything, sheriff's deputies, who left when I showed them my updated property deeds, thanks to a shady surveyor friend. News crews, who spun me as the villain until I gave an interview that went viral for its raw defiance. Even a lawyer who served me papers through the gate, which I promptly used to light my campfire. Ethan became my unexpected ally, sneaking me intel from inside Harmony Hills, Deborah's next moves, weak spots in their morale, even a map of their water lines. The kid was sharp, and I started to trust him. But trust is a fragile thing. One night, as I patrolled the fence line, I caught Ethan slipping back into Harmony Hills, carrying a notebook I'd never seen. My stomach sank. Was he double-crossing me, feeding Deborah my secrets? I followed him, quiet as a coyote, and saw him duck into a shed behind his house. Through a window, I glimpsed him talking to a woman, not Deborah, but someone older, frail, with a scarf around her head. His mom. She was crying, clutching that notebook like it was a piece of her heart. I backed off, feeling like I'd stepped into something private, sacred. The next day, Ethan found me at the ranch, his face pale and pinched. I gotta tell you something, he said, voice low. My mom's sick. Real sick. That notebook. It's her journal. She used to write stories about this valley, back when it was wild. She hates what the HOA's done, same as you. I've been reading him to her, to keep her why she's worth fighting for. He swallowed hard. I didn't tell you 'cause I thought you'd think I was weak. I looked at this kid, barely holding it together, and felt a lump in my throat. Weak, I said, clapping a hand on the shoulder. Ethan, you are the furthest thing from weak. You're fighting for family. That's the strongest thing there is. His eyes welled up, but he nodded, and in that moment, we weren't just allies anymore. We were kin. The final twist came on the 15th day. Deborah called a truce meeting at the gate, her voice dripping with false calm. I showed up, Ethan at my side, ready for her tricks. But what I didn't expect was the crowd behind her, not just Karens, but their kids, their husbands, their elderly parents, all looking worn down by her crusade. Deborah held up a check, the kind of money that could save my ranch 10 times over. Take it, she said, smirking. Walk away, and we'll tear down our fence. You'll never have to deal with us again. I stared at that check, tempted for the first time. I could save my land, my legacy. I could walk away clean. Then Ethan whispered, don't do it, Jack. Tully, they'll never stop. I looked at him, saw his mom's fire in his eyes, and tore the check in half. The crowd gasped. Deborah's face went white. You'll regret this, she hissed. I grinned, holding up my key. Maybe I will. But not today. That night, I lay awake, wondering if I'd just doomed myself. The ranch was bleeding money, the fight was draining me, and Ethan's mom was the only thing keeping me grounded. I didn't know then how much worse it would get or how one final betrayal would break everything apart. The days bled into weeks, and the standoff at Harmony Hills became a siege. My fence stood like a steel middle finger to the Karens, but their resolve didn't crack as I'd hoped. Deborah Whitaker, with her perm and her clipboard, turned the neighborhood into a war machine. They organized shifts to patrol their side of the fence, banging pots and pans at midnight to keep me awake. They blasted floodlights into my windows, claiming it was community safety. They even got a drone to buzz over my ranch, dropping flyers that called me a menace to progress. I shot it down with my old hunting rifle, and the crash felt like a small win. Ethan became my shadow, sneaking through the gap in the fence each day with updates. He'd mapped out their weak spots, the water pump they hadn't secured, The generator they left unguarded. He was a kid, sure, but he had a knack for strategy that made me wonder if he'd been born in the wrong century, fighting alongside outlaws instead of stuck in a cul-de-sac. His mom, Lila, was getting worse though. He didn't talk about it much, but I saw it in the way his shoulders slumped, the way his jokes got quieter. I started leaving extra food on my porch for him to take home: beans, cornbread, whatever I had. He never said thanks, but he didn't have to. The way he looked at me said enough. One night, as we sat by a fire pit, Ethan handed me his mom's notebook. "Read it," he said, voice tight. "She wanted you to." I hesitated, the leather cover worn soft under my fingers. It felt like opening someone's soul. But I did it. Lila's words were poetry and pain, stories of the valley before the Karens came. She wrote about the wind singing through the grass, about her grandfather teaching her to ride, about a time when this land felt free. One passage hit me like a gut punch. They'll take it all, piece by piece, until there's nothing left but their rules. But the land remembers who fought for it. I closed the book, my throat tight. "She's a hell of a woman, your mom," I said. Ethan just nodded, staring into the flames. The next morning, I woke to sirens. Sheriff Daniels, a man I'd known since we were kids stealing apples from Old Man Carter's orchard, stood at my gate with a grim face. "Jack, you gotta open this up," he said, jerking a thumb at the fence. "They're filing charges. Obstruction, endangerment, you name it." I crossed my arms, the key heavy in my pocket. "Let him try, Tom. They stole my land first." He sighed, rubbing his neck. "I get it, Jack. But this is bigger than you now. They've got the governor's ear. You don't open that gate, they'll bring in the state." I laughed, bitter. "Let him bring the damn National Guard. I ain't budging." But the pressure was mounting. My bank account was a ghost town, the ranch hands I couldn't afford to pay had left, and the cattle were getting thin. Ethan kept me going, his quiet defiance like a mirror to my own. Then came the night that changed everything. It was past midnight when I heard the clang of metal. I grabbed my flashlight and ran to the fence, expecting another Karen stunt. Instead, I found Ethan, his face pale as death, cutting through the chain link with bolt cutters. My heart sank. "What the hell are you doing, kid?" I hissed. He froze, eyes wide, like a deer caught in headlights. Jack, too, didn't have a choice. His voice cracked, and he dropped the cutters, hands shaking. "They got to my mom. Said they'd pay for her treatment if I helped him get out." I felt the world tilt. "Deborah?" I asked, already knowing the answer. He nodded, tears streaking his face. "They knew I was helping you. They've been watching me. They said if I didn't cut the fence, they'd make sure Mom's insurance got canceled." I wanted to scream, to shake him, to burn Harmony Hills to the ground. But looking at him scrawny, broken, just a kid trying to save his mommy couldn't. I knelt beside him, gripping his shoulder. "You did what you had to, Ethan. But you should have told me." He sobbed, and I let him. Then I picked up the cutters and finished the job myself. The gate swung open, and I tossed the key into the dirt. "Go home," I said. "Take care of your mom." He looked at me like I'd stabbed him. "What about you?" I forced a smile. "I'll figure it out. Always do." By morning, Harmony Hills was free, and I was the one caged. The Karens didn't waste time. Bulldozers rolled in, tearing down my fence like it was nothing. They expanded their boundary, swallowing another chunk of my ranch. The sheriff came back with a court order, forcing me to sell or face jail. Deborah stood at the gate, her smirk sharper than ever. "You should have taken the check, Jack," she said. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. I packed up what I could: me daddy's rifle, a photo of my grandparents, Lila's notebook. Ethan found me as I loaded my truck. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I ruined everything." I shook my head, handing him the notebook. "You didn't ruin nothing. You fought for your family. That's all that matters." He hugged me, quick and fierce, then ran back to his mom. I watched him go, my chest aching like I'd been kicked by a horse. I drove out of the valley that night, the ranch shrinking in my rearview mirror. The Karens had won. They'd taken my land, my fight, my everything. But as the miles stretched on, I thought about Lila's words. The land remembers who fought for it. Maybe it did. Maybe one day, someone else would pick up where I left off. Maybe Ethan would. I stopped at a diner in Cheyenne, the kind of place where the coffee's bad but the stories are good. An old woman sat at the counter, her hands gnarled as tree roots. She overheard me talking to the waitress about the ranch and slid over. "You're the fella who fenced in them Karens, ain't you?" she asked, her eyes sharp. I nodded, wary. She leaned in, voice low. I used to live in that valley, 50 years back. Lost my farm to folks like them. But I kept something. She reached into her bag and pulled out a deed yellowed, crumpled thing that looked older than sin. This here's the original claim to your land. My family's. Never recorded right, so it's still legal. You want it? I stared at her, my pulse racing. Why give it to me? She smiled, sad and fierce. 'Cause you fought, son, and the land remembers. I took the deed, my hands shaking. It wasn't a win not yet, but it was a spark. A chance. I drove back to the valley the next day, deed in hand, ready to start over. But when I got there, the ranch was gone. Not just fenced off gone. Bulldozed flat, the barn reduced to splinters, the fields paved for more Harmony Hills houses. I stood in the dust, the deed useless in my hand. Ethan was there, waiting by the road, his mom's scarf around his neck. She's gone, he said, voice hollow. Last night. I couldn't save her. We stood there, two broken men in a broken place. I wanted to tell him it'd be okay, that we'd fight again, but the words wouldn't come. The land didn't remember. It was just dirt, and we were just fools who thought we could hold it. In the end, I walked away. The deed went into a drawer, the fight went out of me, and Harmony Hills spread like a cancer. Ethan left the valley too, chasing a future I couldn't give him. I think about him sometimes, wonder if he's still fighting, still carrying his mom's stories. I hope he is. Someone's got to remember. What do you think, was I right to fight the Karens, to cage them like they caged me? Or was I just a stubborn fool, dragging a kid like Ethan into a war I couldn't win? Share your thoughts. The land might not remember, but maybe you will.